Welcome to the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast, powered by the Precision Metal Forming Association. I am your host, Dean Phillips. I am also the technical director here at PMA. I am proud to have with me today Josh Forquer, who is, of course, the CTO over at KIRCHHOFF. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate you having me.
It is great that you took time out of your day. I know you were very busy, and I am very thankful that you spent a little time with us today. Thank you. Right off the bat, I always ask everybody, what's your big takeaway for the next 5 years?
5 years, wow. KIRCHHOFF Automotive and the KIRCHHOFF Group, we're a 200 and now 41-year-old family-owned company, Dean. So we do look in 5-year outlooks. We look in 50-year outlooks at our organization. So for the next 5 years, what I'll focus my comment on, I guess, is from the North American side. That's primarily my responsibilities. The next 5 years is going to be an interesting 5 years. I don't know if there is going to be a normal 5 years coming up. So we've really, since pre-COVID even, at least in the automotive world, there hasn't been what I'm going to call a normal year without a significant interruption. We've had automotive strikes, we've had COVID, we've had chip shortages, we've had a lot of different obstacles. So what I am really focused on in manufacturing for the next 5 years, to be honest with you, is what's next? What's the next issue that's coming at us? And trying to prioritize those the best that we can and put in countermeasures to prevent them. So, next 5 years for me looks like people, product, and then, of course, with the recent discussion of the geopolitical tariffs, is the place. So it's almost like we're back to marketing 101, where we've got the people, the product, and the place, and where do we best make our investments. Those are the three things that I'm really trying to focus on here in North America for KIRCHHOFF.
Excellent. Now, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get involved in manufacturing?
I guess you could say it's in my blood. My dad started out sweeping a floor on a manufacturing company's floor when he was a teenager. He became a draftsman and then ultimately stayed in the steel industry. And then I swore I would never get into the steel industry. After 12 years old, I was, helping him build gooseneck trailers at his family-owned company at the time, drilling holes in conduit and running wires underneath it because we couldn't afford a crane to get them off the ground. They were just sitting on cement blocks. So basically, I've been in the metals industry for a long time in manufacturing. I went to General Motors Institute, now called Kettering, in Flint. So more of a technical-based education, I'll say. And again, said, man, I don't really want to be in manufacturing. But having went to GMI, my co-op at UPS, but when I finished my degree, my thesis advisor basically said, hey, I got this good opportunity for you. You need to go back into manufacturing and purchasing and on the commercial side. And away I went. So it was really by circumstance that I entered back into the metals industry in 1998, I guess, was when I came back into the metals industry, and then worked in metal stamping since 2000. So yeah, been here for a little while.
And that is really the road not taken. Even kicking and screaming, you were.
I didn't want to live in Detroit, to be honest with you, and I didn't want to be in metals, and I struck out on both the chords. And now Detroit's my home. I love it here, and have a great family, both at home and at work here at KIRCHHOFF. So.
Yeah. And you are the true. It's a wonderful life story here. See, that's it. Maybe not what you wanted to do, but it's where you were meant to be. So I think that's really incredible. So now on the CTO side, explain to me how, from a technical standpoint, how you mentioned people, places and products. How do you incorporate that from a technical standpoint of kind of monitoring it and tracking it?
Yeah, so let's start with people, which I believe is the core of all manufacturing businesses. It's no secret, and I'm not the first to say it. When you look around, we have a aging workforce. So we really have to focus on what we're doing for the next generation of people in manufacturing. And that's not just on the shop floor, but that's also the engineers, that's also the program managers, that's also the senior leadership within the manufacturing companies. But let's start at the shop floor. Making things sexy again to come back on the manufacturing floor. I mean, really, where else in industry can you have a 23, 24, 25-year-old person running a $10 million machine? You know, that's not common in any other industry other than what we're doing. You know, and making sure that those people have the training and the skill sets to crank out the in our case car part, but in anybody else's case, you know, washer and dryer part, it doesn't really matter. But how do we attract that talent that wants to be part of what we're doing on a daily basis? Um, Dean, I should have brought with me some pictures. I'll post it on my LinkedIn later. But just
Okay.
something that we're doing in our plants, just as simple as our stand-up areas, you know, making them attractive, making them modern, so that when people are getting the message on a daily basis, they feel like they're in a video game versus in a manufacturing floor. You know, little things like that. Doing a lot of networking for the associates to make sure that they understand that Kirchhoff is a great place to work. Bringing them in educational seminars, having them be exposed to different technologies within our own companies so they don't get bored of just making the same widget every day. They have the opportunity to make different things and have different skill sets as we go forward. We feel that that's really important and try to invest in our people in that way.
Is it? Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the things when I've given speeches on workforce development, one of the things at FabTech a few years ago when I spoke on that is encourage your people to use what they're familiar with. So meaning you should have QR code instructions as opposed to a stack of papers that they should be using to uh, here's your work instruction. Well, why not do the things that they're comfortable with in the format that they're comfortable in using them? And that encourages them to say, hey, this is a forward thinking company. This is a company I want to work for, because you have to sell today working at this company. You just do.
Yeah.
What now, when you said that about the people, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, people are the key to where we're going in our future, and we need to invest in them. Uh, Tell us a little bit about the product side of that element.
Yeah, let me talk about that, but let me throw in a little bit of a process and how we transition to the product. So from the people to the process to the product. Let me kind of hit you on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you all of our secrets, obviously, but having a new person hit the shop floor and how we orientate them and how we bring them along and show them what their job is and show them what the processes are is super important. So here's an example. We bring in somebody onto our shop floor, we put them through some training, and then we say, hey, here's a 50-piece product assembly, and you got to put all these brackets on all these welders at the specific places. That's very overwhelming. But to your point of holding up your cell phone, give them a tool that they know how to use already. We have our engineers developing a technology that literally will shine a light and a picture of a part on our weld fixtures. So that person walks in the door, they know that, okay, that bracket is that bracket. It goes in this location on the weld fixture, and then it shows on the next one and the next one and the next one. So that immediately they're not lost, they're not overwhelmed in
Mm-hmm.
that process. So that leads directly into the product. Our products then are more reliable. We have first time quality increases because the person knows the process drives a quality product, and of course that keeps our cost down. So the product keeps getting more complex. I mean, it does, and it has to in order for us to be lighter, you know, to be stronger. In our industry, you know, our motto is making mobility safe here at KIRCHHOFF Automotive. And
Yeah.
because we make structural parts that when you unfortunately have an accident, we hope that those structural parts keep the occupant safe. So
Hmm.
having that right product in the right place is really important to us, and it all starts with that associate building those products, to the highest quality that they can.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained kind of the why, because I think that's really important to understand why we do what we do. We're not just building parts for cars; we're building it so that the cars can be safer. I think that's really critical for people to understand, because if you don't explain that why they're there every day, why this is important, why your job function is critical to that element, that's really an important aspect. So I'm glad you explained that. I did want to take a step back to what you said a second ago, to explain to people who may have not done things like that before. When you take parts and you assemble them into a weld fixture, if you assemble them in two different ways, they are going to perform very differently. And I have seen this happen thousands of times. And which ones I clamp in which order will change the way and then which way I weld them, because now I'm heating it up. So people that don't understand that, it is really important to understand the sequence of operations that you go through. So I'm glad that you talk about that, especially using those projector type systems. Those are really helpful, especially for people that are early on in their career that don't know the sequence.
That's
Uh,
right.
that's really important. I'm glad you explained that. How do you transition now from your process from people to products to places now?
Yeah. So now that's complete collaboration with the customer. Understanding, where their needs are and what products they need in those locations is really important to a company that's in metal forming. You know, if you go on Google and you look up the top 10 most capital intensive businesses that you can possibly be in, metal forming is always in the top 5. So,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not putting that $10 million press somewhere and then moving it the next year to another location. That's just not in the cards in the business that we're all in. So
Right.
having clear, transparent communication with your customer, I believe, is one of our keys to success. So, for example, we went to our customer and we've said, um, "Hey, we'd like to make this investment, and we think that this is the right thing for Kirchhoff." Well, that customer, and this is a true story without giving a lot of details, Dean, sat back in their chair and said, Go ahead if you want, but I've already got 5 of those assets within 50 miles in my current supply base." Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Well, then maybe that's not a great decision. What do you recommend? What is your need? So, of course, through a lot of different discussions, um, this particular customer, we presented it at one of the PMA events. So I'm not telling anything out of school here. They said, "Well, we'd really like you to figure out how to do Gen 3 steel, and we have a need for that." Oh, okay. So we took our research and development team and we said, "Hey, go figure out how to make this part out of Gen 3 steel." And it took 18 months, but we were able to come back to the customer and say, "Okay, this is what you requested. This is the application that you required. Now we can make the investment in this if you're willing to support us." And of course, we got the support and we made the investment, and we were off and running, and we're in mass production in Gen 3 steel. Uh, so the place, in my opinion, is you got to have clear, transparent communication with what your strategy is with the customer. And the customer, if they're a true partner, will communicate and reciprocate with their information and what their true strategy is. Because nobody in our business can make a large capital investment without some sort of business plan going forward.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And you see it. It's interesting. Uh, I mean, Kirchhoff is down here in Tennessee where I am. I'm in Nashville, and uh, the just outside of Nashville, one of the plants is, and that has evolved. Uh, that plant has changed over time, and not only ownership, but also change to the what they're doing, the parts that they're doing. I think if you think that you're going to build this part and this part's going to be there forever and it's going to look the same, uh, I think you're setting yourself up for failure if you think that that's going to be the case. Parts evolve, companies evolve, and we need to be willing to be fluid in the way that we design and what we're doing. And that line of communication is a critical element of that, because you want to make sure that you're servicing the customer's needs at the end of the day.
That's right.
Because if you're not doing it well and consistently, then they will search out other suppliers. Don't give them, I always say this, don't give them a reason to look for someone else.
That's right. That's right.
What other things do you see as changes coming over the next 5 years?
Yeah, Dean, that's an interesting topic. So everybody talks about the transformation to the BEV vehicles and now the rapid acceleration back to what I'll call our traditional ICE vehicles. What I think is important over the next 5 years is companies pick a strategy and they stay with it. I mean, you've got to be flexible, but your core has got to be the same. So if you're going to be the best stamping company out there, then you better be able to run the fastest. You be able to form the most difficult part, and you should go in that direction. If you're gonna focus on welding and joining technologies, then you need to be the best MIG welder out there. You really need to figure out where you're going to make your investments and put a strategy around it and stick with it. Because otherwise, if you're chasing the newest hydrogen powered vehicle or you're chasing this new technology, at least in metal forming, we don't really care what type of powertrain the car has, as long as it has a piece of metal on it, right?
Right.
But what I do think that we have to focus on over the next 5 years is once that core is in place and you understand that strategy and you're the best at whatever you've chosen to be, I think you have to learn to branch out from the standpoint of offering more than just one thing. So you need to have a core, but then you have to diversify, whether that be your process offerings, your product offerings, your customers, or something else in order to mitigate risk. So, at KIRCHHOFF Automotive, my shareholders are very forward looking. And several years ago, they simply stated, we don't want any more than 25% at any time of our business from one customer, because customers also make good and bad decisions. Some customers went all in on battery electric vehicles and then found themselves not selling anything. Mm-hmm. So we were lucky where we had some customers that did that, and we had some customers that took more of a conservative approach. So from a KIRCHHOFF standpoint, we had our core technologies of stamping and welding, but we had a very diversified customer base that allowed us to get through what I'm going to call the last 2 years of chaos and probably the next 1 year of chaos. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to say by that is, what I'm trying to say, Dean, is you've got to have your core, but then you've got to have all these alternate strategies so that can protect you if your vision's long term. You can't just stick with that thing. Then you also have to diversify, whether that be product or process or customers, in order to make sure that you can have a level loaded workload for years to come.
Right. And I always tell people there's always a hiccup. There's always a shift that's going to happen. You couldn't get chips. Okay. Yeah. Those kinds of things happen. And whether you call it an act of God or whatever, however you want to look at it, there are things that we do. And it's funny because what I heard from people the first time that this happened, when they had the tsunami, which led to the meltdown in Japan, and that messed up the supply chain for chip. We're never going to do this again. Then fast forward, well, we did it again. We're still stuck with the same chip supplier, same situations. And I'm hopeful that we have a broad enough way of thinking, of seeing where our limitations are, even within our own plants. Think of your plants. What happens if a 1,200 ton press goes down? What's your alternate solution to that problem? And we need to have those. How do you think companies as a whole, I don't want to speak just for yourself, but how do you think we've done at shifting to have a contingency plan within our operations?
Oh, that's interesting. And it's interesting because of the tariff situation. I can tell you in my space, a lot of companies, I'm not going to say are partnering, that wouldn't be the right terminology, but they know and we know where they have duplicate assets. So, for example, if I have a 1650 ton press somewhere, I know where there's 3 or 4 sister presses in the industry. That's maybe in Canada for anything that would happen in Canada, maybe something that's here in the US, or maybe something that's in Mexico. Because as the rules have been changing over the last period of time here, maybe our backup solutions that we had in place before are not viable solutions anymore.
Mm.
So having a resurgence of understanding of your market and where those contingency plans could be are important. And I will also tell you that with our the supply base, there's OEMs out there that are really aggressive in making sure that there's local for local supply chains. There's others out there that haven't moved as fast in that scenario. So it's really a mixed bag right now, but I can tell you that what we're doing here in North America is we're trying to develop stronger supplier relationships. We're trying to get better supply chains that are more local for local in order to prevent any kind of shift for the USMCA or anything that might be coming up here in this near future. It's important because we're a low margin business. You can't absorb, a 25% tariff overnight on raw material. That's just not something that a stamping company can do. So we have to shift our supply chains and react to things that puts less risk into our business.
Yeah. Josh, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking time today. Thank you for being here. This has been the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.